Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, my name is Omojeso Alfred, and I'm saying the Swag King. I'm the boss of all bosses, and I happen to be among the very most innocent guys on the face of planet Earth. Like the Caesar, I came, I saw, and of course, I conquer. Because the street refused to go to church, I made up my mind I would definitely take the church to the street, not only that I may rep Christ with a whole lot of swag. It is Epignosis with Apostle Tony Ikalama. Last week, Apostle Star, we looked at how to take possession of what belongs to you, how to take possession of that stuff that actually belongs to you. And of course, due to the fact that a lot of Christians don't really know the things that are being freely given, the things that are being freely given to them by God, and they find themselves oftentimes praying for that same thing that God has said He has already given to them. And of course, you actually break it down for us, and we want to say very big thank you to that. And of course, we're not going to take that for granted at all. Before we proceed for today, let me start by saying Happy New Month to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Just Happy New Month.
Yeah, Happy New Month.
Welcome to April.
Yeah, welcome to the month of April. Now we're looking at the love dimension. The love dimension. The love has anything like dimensions. Let's start from there. What is love dimension?
I don't want to talk about love dimension. We have to break it down into two perspectives. First, love itself,
Okay.
and then before we look at the dimensions.
All right.
What is love? If we look at love, we say love is an intense feeling of a deep affection.
Okay.
An intense feeling of a deep affection. So when we are looking at this love from the perspective of God,
Yeah.
as believers and Christians, so that is the dimension we are going to go.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to. That's why it's called the love dimension. Okay.
So when we're talking about dimension, we're talking about practicalizing,
Okay.
actualizing this love of God upon our life.
Okay.
In what various ways, in what various aspects, divisions, can we express this love of God?
Okay.
So that is why we look at the dimensions. How do you practicalize this?
Right.
Like Christ said, that you cannot pray evil for your enemies, because so the unbelievers do. So you pray for your friends, also pray for your enemies. By so doing, you are teaching them that you have the love of God.
Okay.
So the love we are looking at is the love of God, for God is love.
Okay, okay. When you're saying that, let me take you a little bit back to the Bible. Okay, now David says something striking when the Amalekite guy came to him and said Saul and his son Jonathan were dead. Okay, now there is a scenario there that a common man, I don't think a common man has that ability to display the way David displayed his kind of love to Saul and, of course, to his son Jonathan. Now, remember the right before then, the Bible made us understand that David was not part of the war, because why Saul was actually looking out to kill him. He sent men out there to kill David because he knows that David will become the king after him, and he doesn't want David to be the king. He wants his son Jonathan to be the king. Okay, now this other part will say the reason why Saul wants Jonathan to be king, because that is selfish love. Okay, though he love, but it's selfish love. But the Bible said something that David, when the report came to him that Saul and, of course, his son Jonathan were dead, he said something. He said, "Oh, Jonathan," he said, "the love you have for me." So the love you have for me is stronger than the love of a woman. Okay, so now at that point, I don't know, but I'm thinking David was actually going into a very deep dimension, saying that the love you have for me, not even husband or wife can practice that kind of deep affection, meaning they can't go out of their way at the extent you have gone. So let's start from that side, Sir Pastor.
Yes, I want Jesus.
Yeah.
Now, what you just pick out from the Bible was what about the love of Eros. And I was counting 4 types of loves. Love for you, I said. You have the agape, you have the eros, you have the storge, and
Yeah.
I've forgotten the fourth one.
Yeah.
And the eros is what David is trying to bring into play,
Okay.
like a simile, a
Okay.
display, because what he was doing there was like, how do I call it? It's like a poetic format.
Yeah.
So eros comes in. Now, but you forgot something, that David to the household of Saul was not just an ordinary relationship. Remember that Saul gave him his daughter, the only daughter for marriage,
Yeah.
when he defeated Goliath.
Yeah.
So David was a son-in-law to Saul
Mhm.
and a brother-in-law to Jonathan. So there is a family tie that comes together.
Okay.
Outside the natural, there's a family tie.
Okay.
They were family. So David is bound as a family to say that.
Okay.
But we are looking at love from the perspective of Jesus Christ as believers.
Okay.
On our modern day Christianity of believers, as Christ said,
Mm.
Christ gave the definition of love.
Okay.
So if we are looking at love, love is an unconditional one, where a condition is not attached to it. Remember that the love of the church and Christ is supposed to be like the love of husband and wife.
Yeah.
And that's why I say the bride and the bridegroom. So, and that's the eros he's talking about. So if you see husband and wife, they are so intimate that they forgive one another no matter the circumstances, no matter what happens.
Okay.
So that's the kind of love the Bible is talking about for Christendom, for the church, an unconditional love. And if you have an unconditional love, that means you have a deep affection, a
Okay.
deep feeling to pursue the purpose of God and the purpose of man. Fine, you will not hurt your neighbor. You will not offend you. If they are, you have to forgive. Forgiveness is part. It said love is patient. According to 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not boastful. Love is not extravagant. Love is not rude. Love is not envious.
All right.
Love forgives.
Mhm.
All these are attributes of love. So that's why David is able to forgive. The number of times that Saul tried to kill him, he didn't put it into perspective.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, so how length can we go in terms of loving our fellow brothers and sisters? Now,
Yes.
because you talk about the love of God, all
Yes.
right, and we've heard a lot of times most Christians use this word saying, "I can't please you and displease myself." All right. Now, the question is, how far can we go in loving one another?
Now, see, when the Bible said in the book of Matthew 22, 36 to 40, as I rightly quote, I said, on these two hang all the prophets and the laws.
Yeah.
Hang. So, which means there's an anger.
Yeah.
Hanger.
Okay.
Now, if you go to your wardrobe,
Hmm.
take all of the clothes, take off all the hangers,
Hmm.
and put in two hangers there. The first hanger representing love the Lord your God with all your soul and all your might.
Hmm.
And the second, love your neighbor as you love yourself. I don't know if you get, I'm trying to bring a practical example now.
Yeah. I'm just
Now, take 10 hangers now. Hang 4 hangers on the one existing one out of the two. Now, and hang the other one on this other one. Now, this other first hanger is carrying love of God to man. Thou shalt not serve any other God before me. The
Okay.
first law.
Okay.
Thou shalt not make unto yourself any graven image. Second law. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Third law. And remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. You hang it on the first one. So that is your relationship, your love with God. And the second hanger, take the 6 other hangers. Honor your father and your mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. 6. And hang it. So your relationship of man is not to do these 6 things to your fellow man.
Okay.
And your relationship with God is not to do these 4 things to God. Then you can now know that you are totally exhibiting the pose of love of God. So when you say you will not displease yourself, to say, no, nobody's asking you to displease yourself, because I say, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
because you've not been able to displease yourself, don't displease your neighbor.
All right.
So it's the manner and portion and quantification of how you love yourself is what is asking you to reciprocate, because you cannot give what you don't have.
Okay.
I know I tell some persons that some persons are selfish and wicked to themselves, because some persons don't even love themselves, so they
Alright.
cannot love somebody else.
Okay. So how do you know if one does not have love for himself?
Yes. Now, first and foremost, if you don't have love for yourself, you cannot love God.
Okay.
You say, how do we know? Because I say, by their fruits you shall know them.
All right.
A man that does not have love for God, you will not see him going to service time to worship God. That's the first. Time for service, he has every excuses. He's at work. Oh, there's emergency. So that area of relationship between him and God, you see, totally is falling out.
Okay.
That's the first thing you know.
All right.
So a man that, because I said, if you cannot love your neighbor who is with you, how can you say you love God?
All right.
So when you are not able to display this, every service time, there's service time, you always have an excuse why you should not be in service.
Okay.
Automatically, you don't have love for God. Because if you have, we say, it's an intense feeling and a deep affection.
Okay.
So that means you don't have it for God.
All right.
He said, where a man's treasure is, there lays his heart.
Yes.
So then you now see also that a man that does not love himself cannot reciprocate same to neighbor. He sees neighbor is dying of hunger. And he himself, there are some person that they have food
Okay.
and they are hungry, but they don't want to eat. They have money in their pocket to buy food. For the fact that if they buy, their neighbor is there, will join them to eat, they will starve themselves.
Okay. Because
So,
they don't want their neighbor.
yes, they
to
don't want
eat.
their neighbor to eat. So at the same time, displeasing their own self.
Wow.
So such person does not love himself. Because the Bible said, God is a cheerful giver. So, and if you love your neighbor, you have to buy. Sometimes you are not even feeling hungry, but for the fact your neighbor is feeling hungry, there are some neighbors you give, they'll say no, they don't want. Because of that, what do? You prepare and pretend as if you are eating and say, neighbor, please come and join me to eat. Now that is a man that goes extra length in reciprocating or showing the love of God.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish sometimes I just think, imagine that we have longer time. I wish we have a longer time to continue with our discussions every week. But time is the greatest enemy we have, of course, on the face of planet Earth. There is only one man that can replenish the time the locust, the caterpillar, the cankerworm has taken away from us, and that is God Almighty. We, as humans, we really don't have the power to bring back those times that have been taken away from us. But before we call it a wrap, in a nutshell, what will you say love is?
In a nutshell, love, according to 1 John 4:8, love is God, and God is love.
All right.
And if you must love, then you must keep his commandments.
Okay.
And his commandments are not grievous.
All right.
That shows first that you love God and you love your neighbor.
Okay.
Then we are a Church from God Ministries, located at number 7 Minichinda Street, Elimbu, Port Harcourt. Days of activities are Tuesdays from 8 a.m. to 12 noon is our fasting and praying period. And from 12 noon to 4 p.m. is our counseling period. And every Friday evening, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. is an evening with the Lord, with an exception for the second and last Friday of every month, which is a night with God, where you come with all your expectations and you encounter the most supreme being, the creator of the universe. And our Sunday services are gracious services, 2 services which runs from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. for the first service, and the second service, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. You can also follow us on our Facebook page, our Twitter handle, and our YouTube on Touch TV. The Lord bless you as you do so.
All right, Lord bless you too. Lord bless you too, Apostle. All right, next week we are definitely going to be looking at Apostle's new book. It talks about tithes. So that is actually the topic we're going to be looking at next week. We're actually going to go flip to some of the pages of the book. And of course, Apostle is going to throw a little bit more light, like a summary of the total book and what the book itself is all about. Don't forget, my name is Omojesu Alfred. Don't forget, I'm the Swag King. I'm the boss of all bosses. And I happen to be among the very most innocent guys on the face of planet Earth. Yes, after the break, we'll meet at the next studio as we continue with the show, the countdown, and of course the big question for today. So go nowhere. I'll be right back shortly.